Thomas lived alone. A quiet man in his 40s, he worked from home, rarely spoke to neighbors, and had no close friends. His house was at the edge of the cul-de-sac, the kind of place no one passes by unless they mean to. It began one Thursday. At exactly 3 a.m., a knock came at the door. 3 soft knocks, not loud, not frantic, but deliberate, rhythmic, like someone knew he was listening. Thomas sat up in bed, heart tapping in his chest. He checked the time, 3 o'clock. He waited. Maybe it was a dream. Another 3 knocks, this time slower. He stood, made his way through the dark hallway, and peered through the peephole. No one. The porch light flickered slightly, casting shadows across the lawn. But there was no sign of life. He opened the door just a crack. Cold air. Silence. The street was empty. The next night, the same thing. 3 a.m., 3 knocks. No one there. But this time, when he turned to go back to bed, he noticed muddy footprints on his wooden floor. Small ones, barefoot, leading from the door to the kitchen and back to the door. He hadn't opened the door that time. He hadn't even touched the handle. By the 4th night, Thomas was no longer scared. He was angry. He waited with a kitchen knife, standing by the door at 2:59. Exactly at 3, the knocks came again, but this time they were on the back door. 3 knocks, then 3 more, then scratching. When he turned on the lights, both front and back doors had muddy prints outside, and this time on the inside as well. The 5th night, he called the police. They arrived at 3:15, too late, of course. He explained everything. One of the officers looked pale, the older one. He pulled Thomas aside and said quietly, "Don't ever open the door. No matter what you hear, no matter how many nights they come, just don't let them in." On the 6th night, the knocks came louder. Not just on the front door, but on the windows, the walls. Voices started whispering from the vents, from the drains. From inside the walls, children's voices. Some were crying, some were laughing. One voice said, right behind his ear, though no one was there, "We used to live here, until someone opened the door." Now it's the 7th night. Thomas hasn't slept. The house is silent, but the air feels thick, heavy. It's 2:59 a.m. He's staring at the door. The knocks are coming. They always do, and this time. Part 2, the 7th night, 3 a.m. The first knock was louder this time. Not soft, not patient, it was angry. Thomas sat frozen in the living room, lights off, phone in hand, staring at the front door. Then came the second knock, right behind him. He spun around. No one, but something had moved in the hallway. He was sure of it. The whispers returned, this time from the air vents above. "You left us outside too long. We're cold. Let us in." Then another knock, but not from any door or wall. This time, the knock came from under the floor. 3 sharp thuds, right beneath his feet. And then, a voice from under the floorboards whispered, "We're already inside." Thomas backed into the hallway. The walls were wet now, sweating, dripping dark water. Or was it blood? He turned toward his bedroom. The door was open. Inside, someone was sitting on the bed. The same little girl. She tilted her head slowly, still smiling. In her hand, she held a piece of paper. She raised it. It was a page torn from Thomas's old childhood notebook. In crayon, a child had drawn a stick figure family. One figure had its face blacked out completely. And above the drawing, in shaking letters, "Don't open." Thomas blinked. She was gone. The room was empty again. But now, there were muddy footprints leading into the closet. and from inside, breathing. Part 3. The Closet. Thomas stood still, staring at the closet door. The footprints stopped at its base. The breathing on the other side was shallow, wet, like someone struggling to inhale through lungs filled with liquid. He reached for the handle, then stopped. "Don't open." The words from the crayon drawing echoed in his mind. But something on the other side whispered, "Please, help me." It sounded like a child, but not quite. There was something in the tone, too low, too deliberate, like something imitating a child. He stepped back. The breathing stopped. Silence. Then, suddenly, the closet rattled violently, as if something inside had thrown itself against the door. Once, twice, then nothing. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He sat on the living room couch, lights on, TV playing static, the knife resting across his lap. Every once in a while, he'd hear soft laughter coming from the walls, sometimes whispers in a language he couldn't understand. At 4:13 a.m., the power went out. The silence was immediate and brutal, the kind of silence that breathes. Morning came, gray, dead. No birds, no sunlight. When he opened the front door to get fresh air, he noticed something scratched into the wood on the outside. "We don't knock for fun." Below that, a single handprint. Small, childlike, but with 6 fingers. That day, Thomas tried to leave the house. He grabbed his keys, locked the door, stepped out into the driveway, and stopped. His car was gone. The street was gone. Everything outside was white, a blank void stretching in all directions, like someone had erased the neighborhood. No houses, no sky, just white. And standing in the center of it were 7 children, all barefoot, all staring, all smiling. Thomas ran back inside and slammed the door. Everything returned to normal, sort of, except now, on his walls, pictures were appearing, sketched in charcoal, crudely drawn. Him standing at the door, him sleeping in bed, him staring through the window at himself that night, the 8th night. Thomas heard the knocking again, but not at 3, at 2, then again at 1, then midnight. Every hour earlier, they were getting closer, not to the door, but to being inside. And at 11 p.m., the doorbell rang. He hadn't heard it in years. Thomas approached slowly. He looked through the peephole. No one was there. But then the doorbell rang again, louder. And a voice, deep, ancient, spoke through the keyhole. "You kept us waiting. Now it's your turn." Part 4, the waiting room. Thomas stepped back from the door. The voice, that cold, unhurried voice, still echoed in his skull. "Now it's your turn." The hallway lights began to flicker. Then they turned off completely. The house was pitch black. Thomas didn't move. And from somewhere deep in the darkness, the voice spoke again. "We waited, behind your door. You never answered. You left us out there in the cold." The air turned heavy, thick like smoke. Thomas stumbled to the kitchen to find a flashlight. But when he opened the drawer, it was full of teeth. Human teeth. Small, rotten. He slammed it shut, turned around, and the hallway had changed. It was no longer wood floor, no longer drywall. It was stone, wet, ancient. The house had shifted, or maybe he had. The door behind him slammed on its own. The doorknob melted into the wall. There was no way back. He began walking forward, deeper into the impossible corridor, the stone walls dripping with black moisture. The air hummed with static, and every few feet he passed something, watching him. Not eyes, not creatures, just faces melted into the stone. Dozens, hundreds, all frozen in silent screaming. Some of them looked familiar. One of them looked like him. He reached a door, not wooden, not metal. This one was made of skin. It pulsed slightly, like it was breathing. Across it, carved with fingernails, the waiting room. He touched the handle. It was ice cold. It opened on its own. Inside was a massive, empty room, all white, blinding white. No corners, no shadows. In the center, a single chair. Sitting in it was a child, the same barefoot girl from the window. She looked at him, but her eyes were gone. In their place, dark holes, deep and endless. She held something in her lap, a mirror, and she said, "Look." Thomas stepped forward. Reluctantly, he looked into the mirror. It didn't show his reflection. It showed his house. It showed him asleep in his bed. Everything looked normal, but slowly in the reflection, shadows began to creep in from the corners. Dozens of little silhouettes, all with blank faces, all walking toward his sleeping body. Then the mirror went dark, and the girl whispered, "That's not you anymore." Suddenly, the room tilted. Gravity snapped sideways. Thomas fell, spinning, twisting through a void, colors bending, air howling. He landed on the floor of his own living room, breathing hard, sweating. It was morning, or looked like it. Sunlight through the window, coffee machine humming. Normal. Until he looked at the front door. It was open, just a crack, and muddy footprints led inside. Thomas stood motionless. The front door was open. Not wide, just enough. Enough to let someone in. Enough to invite. The muddy footprints stretched across the threshold, soaking into his living room rug, fading into the hallway. Faint whispers echoed from the walls again, clearer now. "You opened it. You let us in. You broke the rule." Thomas backed away. No knife, no plan, no escape. He turned to run into the kitchen, but stopped. Every window in the house was now covered in black cloth, nailed shut from the inside. The ceiling creaked, then the floor. They were everywhere. He wasn't alone anymore. In the hallway mirror, his reflection didn't follow him. It just stood there, smiling. It raised a hand. Thomas did not. Then the reflection stepped forward through the glass and stood in front of him, face to face, identical. But its skin was gray. Its eyes were empty. Its breath smelled of dirt and mold. The thing that looked like Thomas whispered, "Go back to the door." Thomas, against his will, turned around and walked, feet dragging, hands trembling. The front door was now wide open. Beyond it, not his neighborhood, but a black forest, roots like claws, sky pulsing red like a dying heart, and dozens of children standing silently among the trees, barefoot, waiting, watching. And in the center of them stood her, the girl with the mirror. She held it up once more. This time, it showed nothing. Not the house, not Thomas, just darkness. She said, "There's no more waiting." Thomas screamed, but no sound came. The floor beneath him cracked open like rotting wood, and he fell, through his house, through time, through himself, into the same white void the children came from. The last thing he saw was the door closing behind him, and his reflection, the thing in his shape, locking it from the inside. Since that night, the house remains empty, but neighbors say they sometimes hear soft knocking from inside. At 3 a.m., always 3 knocks. And if you walk too close, you might hear a voice whisper from behind the door, "Please, don't open."